In 1925, the Dominican Republic stood at a crossroads, newly freed from nearly a decade of U.S. occupation. The departure of American forces left Dominicans hopeful for stability and self-determination. President Horacio Vazquez's election brought optimism, but the country's economy remained tied to agriculture, especially sugar, dominated by American-owned plantations. This dependence made the nation vulnerable to global price swings. Most Dominicans lived in rural poverty, while a small elite controlled land and power from cities like Santo Domingo. Infrastructure was limited, and access to education and healthcare was scarce for the majority. Despite hardships, Dominican culture thrived, blending Taino, African, and Spanish influences. Politically, the country tried to build a democracy under a new constitution, but power often rested with local strongmen, or caudillos. The military, reorganized during the U.S. occupation, was becoming a dominant force. This new National Guard, intended to maintain order, would soon shape the nation's destiny. The stage was set for a turbulent era that would test the country's resilience. The hope of 1925 was real, but so were the challenges ahead. The Dominican Republic was about to enter one of the most defining periods in its history. The fragile democracy after U.S. occupation quickly unraveled. President Vazquez's attempt to extend his term sparked crisis, and from the military ranks, Rafael Trujillo emerged. In 1930, Trujillo seized power through a coup, then rigged the election to secure his rule. His dictatorship would last over 30 years, reshaping every aspect of Dominican life. Trujillo consolidated power by placing loyalists in government and taking direct control of the military. Opposition was crushed, political parties banned, press silenced, and a network of spies enforced obedience. Fear became a tool of governance. Dissent meant imprisonment or death. Trujillo built a cult of personality, renaming Santo Domingo after himself and plastering his image everywhere. Slogans equated him with divinity, masking the regime's brutality. The capital and even the highest mountain bore his name. His propaganda machine worked relentlessly to present him as the nation's savior. But beneath the surface, the Dominican Republic was gripped by fear and repression. Trujillo's absolute control would define an era of darkness and set the stage for future upheaval. The country's fate was now in the hands of a single ruthless leader. Under Trujillo, fear and surveillance ruled daily life. The secret police, SIM, enforced loyalty. Neighbors spied on each other, and a careless word could mean disappearance. Trujillo's family seized control of major industries, amassing vast wealth while the population struggled. Modernization projects served to strengthen his grip, not to benefit the people. The 1937 Parsley Massacre marked the regime's darkest hour. Thousands of Haitians were murdered in a campaign of ethnic cleansing. Trujillo's anti-Haitian racism fueled this atrocity, leaving a legacy of trauma. Despite international condemnation, he maintained power through force and manipulation, sometimes installing puppet presidents to feign democracy. The U.S. initially supported him as an anti-communist ally, but his brutality eventually led to isolation. The Dominican Republic became a nation defined by fear, its wealth and future controlled by one man. The consequences of Trujillo's rule would haunt the country for generations. His regime's shadow loomed long after his death. By the late 1950s, resistance to Trujillo was growing, both at home and abroad. The murder of the Mirabal sisters in 1960 exposed the regime's cruelty and galvanized opposition. Internationally, Trujillo's failed assassination attempt on Venezuela's president led to sanctions and U.S. abandonment. Isolated and vulnerable, Trujillo was assassinated in 1961 by conspirators from within his own ranks. His family and puppet president tried to cling to power, but the regime quickly collapsed. The country entered a period of chaos. Uprisings forced the Trujillos to flee, ending their control. In 1962, the first free elections in decades brought Juan Bosch to power, but his reformist agenda alarmed conservatives. After just 7 months, Bosch was overthrown in a military coup, plunging the nation back into instability. The stage was set for civil war and renewed foreign intervention. The Dominican Republic's struggle for democracy was far from over. The 1963 coup deepened divisions, leading to civil war in 1965. Supporters of ousted President Bosch clashed with conservative military factions in Santo Domingo. Fearing another Cuba, the U.S. intervened, ending the conflict but blocking Bosch's return. A provisional government paved the way for 1966 elections, where Joaquin Balaguer, a former Trujillo ally, won with US and elite backing. Balaguer's 12-year rule mixed authoritarianism with ambitious public works, suppressing opposition while building schools, hospitals, and roads. Elections continued, but dissent was often met with violence or disappearance. Balaguer's strategy won rural support, even as democracy remained tightly controlled. His presidency defined an era of fragile order after years of chaos. The Dominican Republic experienced development, but true political freedom was elusive. Balaguer's legacy would shape the nation for decades. The struggle between democracy and authoritarianism continued to define Dominican politics. The country moved forward, but the wounds of dictatorship lingered. The next chapter would test the resilience of its institutions. In 1978, the Dominican Republic faced a crucial test. Would democracy prevail? Opposition candidate Antonio Guzman won, but the military tried to halt the vote count. International pressure forced them to accept the results, marking the first peaceful transfer of power in modern history. Guzman's presidency focused on depoliticizing the military and freeing political prisoners, strengthening democratic institutions. His tragic suicide in 1982 did not derail the democratic process. The 1980s and 90s saw familiar faces return. Balaguer served 2 more terms, marked by public works and election controversies. The political scene became a contest among 3 major parties: Balaguer's PRSC, the PRD, and Juan Bosch's new PLD. The 1994 election crisis led to the Pact for Democracy, shortening Balaguer's term and reforming the constitution. These changes improved electoral transparency and ended the era of strongman politics. The groundwork was laid for a new generation of leaders. The Dominican Republic's democracy was finally taking root. For decades, the Dominican economy depended on sugar, leaving it vulnerable to global market shifts. The 1980s brought crisis as sugar prices fell and US quotas shrank. The country responded by diversifying. Tourism became the new economic engine. Resorts sprang up in Punta Cana and beyond, creating jobs and transforming the landscape. Free trade zones attracted foreign factories, especially in textiles and electronics, offering new employment opportunities. Urbanization accelerated as people left rural areas for cities and tourist hubs. A new middle class emerged, and the economy became more connected to the world. While poverty and inequality persisted, economic diversification fueled growth. Tourism and industry replaced agriculture as the main drivers of prosperity. The Dominican Republic's transformation laid the foundation for future progress. The nation was no longer defined solely by sugar. It was now a player on the global stage. Entering the 21st century, the Dominican Republic enjoyed stable democracy and rapid economic growth. The PLD dominated politics, with Leonel Fernandez and Danilo Medina leading a period of modernization and investment in education and infrastructure. Tourism, remittances, and foreign investment fueled prosperity, lifting many out of poverty. Major projects like the Santo Domingo Metro and new highways improved daily life. Yet corruption, crime, and inequality remained persistent challenges. In 2020, voters chose change. Luis Abinader of the PRM won the presidency, promising transparency and reform. His administration tackled corruption and steered the country through the COVID-19 crisis, reviving tourism and the economy. Abinader's 2024 re-election signaled public approval of his direction. The Dominican Republic stands as a resilient democracy, but the work of building a fairer society continues. The nation's progress is real, but so are the challenges ahead. From 1925 to 2025, the Dominican Republic's journey has been one of dramatic transformation. The nation endured dictatorship, civil war, and foreign intervention, yet democracy slowly took root. The fall of Trujillo and the rise of new leaders marked a shift from authoritarianism to participatory government. Economic change was just as profound. Sugar gave way to tourism, industry, and remittances, fueling growth and social mobility. Urbanization and a new middle class reshaped society, even as inequality and corruption persisted. The peaceful transfer of power in 1978 proved democracy's potential. Today, the Dominican Republic is a vibrant, globally connected nation. Its people have shown remarkable resilience, overcoming hardship to build a brighter future. The challenges are real, but the story of the last century is one of hope and progress. The Dominican Republic stands as a testament to the enduring power of change.